بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلوات الله وسلامه على نبينا الأمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to our short presentations, inshallah, as it relates to some of the basic and fundamentals that we need to understand and know about the 5 arkan of al-Islam. The 5 arkan or pillars of al-Islam. The targeted audience as it relates to this discussion is basically for the new Muslims, people who are brand spanking new in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can be a person who was born and raised in al-Islam, your parents are Muslims, but for whatever reason, one reason or another, you were not practicing and now you came back to your religion and you're trying to practice, but you're basically like a baby. Or the person who grew up as a non-Muslim and then they actively engaged in making steps to embrace the religion, and now they are reverts or converts to the deen. So we're not trying to make the information here complicated because it's the last thing you need. I'm like you, I'm a revert to this religion. In 1986, I embraced the religion. And I was left at the whims and to the whims of the Muslims who were around me because I didn't know the religion. And the people who were teaching me, they made the religion difficult for me. So difficult that I began to think about and consider leaving the religion because what I was being fed in the way of information was incorrect. And to be precise with you, in the month of Ramadan, I embraced al-Islam. And I was with a group of people who didn't know much about Islam. And they told me I had to fast from Fajr time all the way to Isha time, not Maghrib, all the way until Isha. It was during the summer months in America when the hours were very long. Fasting, it was very, very long. So Isha was about 2 more hours after Maghrib, or maybe even more than that, if I remember. And I never fasted in my life. So it was quite difficult and quite daunting on me. And that's why the Prophet warned every single Muslim when he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna fikum munaffirin. Verily, there are those from amongst you who they run people away from the religion. They run people away from the sabil of Allah and the way of Allah. And that's why there are ayahs of the Quran. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ. Who is more oppressive than the one who prevents the people from the way of Allah, the sabil of Allah? Some of us, when we hear that ayat, when we read ayahs like that, we think it's talking about people who are now Muslims stopping al-Islam from spreading. It can be that, but it also can be the mother and the father that gives their daughter a hard time as it relates to wearing hijab, and the mother and the father are Muslims. It can also be applicable to the person who they give a Muslim a hard time and just practicing any aspect of Islam, and they themselves are Muslims. So in this case, when we deal with new Muslims and we're too rough, tough, and aggressive, too overwhelming on them and for them, the ayat is applicable to us. Who is more oppressive than the one who prevents people from the way of Allah? So with that being the reality of the situation, we want to do what didn't happen to us when we became Muslims, and that is we want to serve as advisors, as support. We want to be those people who can help to guide those new Muslim brothers and those new Muslim sisters bi-idhnillah, by Allah's permission, because ultimately it is Allah that guides. Allah told his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Ya Muhammad, you cannot and you do not and you will not guide those who you love, those who you want to guide. But Allah guides whoever he wants to. Allah is the one who guides. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a human being, as a prophet and a messenger, he has the ability to put people on the right path and to show them the way. like bringing a horse to the water. He can bring him to the water, but he can't teach him or force him to drink or how to drink. And that's why Allah said to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in another ayat, إِنَّكَ لَتَهْدِي إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Verily you guide to the sirat al-mustaqim. Now this is really important. One ayat of the Quran tells Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you cannot guide those who you love. You won't guide them, you can't. Another ayat says, you do guide to the sirat al-mustaqim. So as a new Muslim, a revert, when I come into the religion, I see one ayat saying one thing and another ayat appearing to say something else. Do I say it's a contradiction? I say no. I'm a new Muslim. I'm a revert. My information is very limited. My knowledge is extremely limited. Let me take my time and not be arrogant. That doesn't make sense to me, so I'm going to reject it. No. Prophet Muhammad said about this religion, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna hadha deen mateen. This religion is strong, it's wide, it's expansive. You can't do everything in the course of a day that Allah wants you to do. You do the best that you can. So back to the square. I would like to take this opportunity, along with my brothers at Islamwise, to do our level best to try to support our Muslim brothers and sisters who are reverts or converts. You know, I remember when I was a revert, they used to make a big deal about using the word revert and not convert. And people used to argue, revert, convert, revert, convert. Come on, man. You understand the point. Let's get with the program and get on with our lives now, practicing Islam as opposed to splitting hairs. There's a big problem with our community today. And there's another very important thing that I want to advise you. Remember, you new brothers and sisters, I just advise you. When you read ayahs of the Quran, a hadith, or something in the religion you don't understand, pump your brakes and slow down and don't be arrogant and say, I don't understand it, so no. There's a plausible explanation. So get knowledge. Another thing I want to advise you about, and that is, as a new Muslim, wallahi, when you come into Islam, it is like Allah is protecting you. Allah is protecting you and He makes things easy for you. But as time goes on, and you get more experience and more time under your belt, now you'll see things start becoming complicated. Allah said that about Bani Israel as well, that they didn't have differences and they didn't start fighting until they got knowledge. So the more knowledge you get, you're going to be challenged with things are going to start becoming more complicated and difficult. I remember I was a brand spanking new Muslim. Islam was easy, like drinking Zamzam. Not just Zamzam, cold Zamzam water on a hot day. That's how it was. Now I've been in Islam since '86, graduated from Medina, traveled all around the world. I've been giving dawah 20-something years, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out what's wrong with the Muslims? What's wrong with us? I never asked the question, what's wrong with Islam? I say, what's wrong with us? So my second piece of advice, just take your time. Just take your time. So as an introduction, we're going to deal with the 5 pillars of Al-Islam, the 5 arkan of Al-Islam in a very easy and simple way. And I would encourage each and every one of you to take the time out to learn more. And just don't stick with what you read or what you hear from me or this one or that one, but make sure that you have an insatiable appetite that you want to constantly feed, but you can't feed it. Because as they said, the knowledge of Al-Islam is like an ocean that has no shores. So we're looking forward to seeing you in the next episode, where we'll talk about the first pillar of Al-Islam, which is the Shahadatain. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.